Our theme is inspired by two powerful scriptures. First, Colossians chapter 3, 23 to 24, which reminds us to walk wholeheartedly as unto the Lord and not unto men, recognizing that our work is ultimately an act of service to Christ. And then the second, Matthew chapter 5, verse 14 to 16, which reminds us that we are the light of the world, called to let our light shine through our good works so that God may be glorified. So through the Kingdom series, we seek to equip believers, particularly young professionals and emerging leaders, to live out their faith boldly and effectively in their professional environments. So this evening, we are privileged to have with us a distinguished marketplace leader whose professional journey exemplifies many of these principles. Our special guest speaker tonight is Mr. Gbite Falade, the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Aradel Holdings Plc. We look forward to learning from his leadership experience and his insights on aligning our work with God's purpose and the bigger picture. So as we begin, I encourage each of us to approach this session not merely as another virtual event, but as an opportunity for reflection, alignment, and transformation. So thank you once again for joining us, and please stay tuned for the next 1 hour and participate actively. You can post your questions in the chat box, and after 40 minutes of this session with Mr. Falade, we go into Q&A for the remaining last 20 minutes of the session. So I'll just jump into the session right away. You're welcome again, Mr. Gbite Falade. We're very delighted to have you tonight. And I think it would be good to start with asking you to tell us about your journey. What has been your journey from the beginning up till now, where you are today? Thank you.
All right. Thank you. It's a massive delight to be here joining this session this evening. I'd like to thank the entire RCCG, the King's Court here, for deeming it worthy to invite me to be here. My name is Gbite Falade. I was born some 54 years ago. I have the unique privilege of being born as a twin, and grew up in the city of Ibadan, where my parents raised us up, civil servants. Went to primary school in Ibadan, secondary school in Ibadan, Government College Ibadan, and then University of Ibadan, where I studied electrical and electronics engineering. I graduated in 1995, did my mandatory NYSC in Delta State, and whilst going through my NYSC period, was also going through recruitment process with Shell Petroleum Development Company, where I started my career as a systems engineer. And I worked in that company for a period of about 13 years. First as a systems engineer, deploying real-time solutions for production operations, and then went further into IT infrastructure, delivering backbone IT infrastructure to support company operations, and then became a project manager, and then took a very radical decision to quit everything that was technical and became a petroleum economist. Whilst on that journey, I also commenced my MBA program at Warwick Business School, and coincidentally, barely a year after I finished my MBA, which I did whilst I was working, I then got employed by Oando as an executive director in the gas and power business, what we know today as Accela. I did about 4 years on that bit before I was moved to the upstream arm of Oando at a critical point when Oando was making the strategic decision of moving its balance sheet upstream, and I was Pioneer Chief Operating Officer for Oando Energy Resources. I was in that division for a period of 3 years. before I then left Oando. And after a short period of time, I took on the role of managing director of OilServe. OilServe is an EPC facility. It's an EPC company that is into facilities and pipeline. A job that I did for 4 years before I then marched through a process to become the managing director and chief executive officer for what we now know as Aradel Holdings Plc today in 2021. So my career had swung from technical into commercial, into general management. I've touched a lot of things here and there in the energy space, upstream, midstream, downstream. And today I'm privileged by the grace of God to be leading the line for an integrated energy company that is listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Whilst doing that, I've also had the privilege of assuming the role of the chairman of the Independent Petroleum Producer Group, which is the umbrella body for indigenous independent producer companies in our space, a body of about 33 member companies today, who collectively account for more than half the production of the nation. That has been my journey. I also hold a certificate in bivocational ministry from the Clear Creek Baptist Bible College in Kentucky in the US. So in my daytime, I work in the office. In my nighttime, I work in many other places. Let's keep it that way.
Great. Thanks for that very beautiful introduction and journey. So where can you now clearly see God's hand shaping your path, even in season when you may not have fully understood what he was doing?
So I think the first consciousness for me was when I gave my life to Christ. That dated back to 10th of January, 1988. I was born into what you would call a Christian family, raised up by godly and God-fearing parents who ensured that we always go to church. And we went through the different age grade groupings within the Baptist church. Whilst doing that, I think I lived my life normally. I didn't see or notice anything special. I just thought, just go through and survive. But I had that salvation encounter in January 10 of 1988. It was in a church service in Ibadan. And one of the first things that struck me after that salvation experience is that I came under the consciousness that there is more about me than what I had grappled with. I all of a sudden woke up from a trance and felt that I was not an accident and I was made for a purpose. I didn't know what that purpose was, but it was clear to me that I was born for a purpose. And I think for me, that was when I started living my life very consciously and deliberately and very intentionally. And that reflected in many things. It reflected in my grades, it reflected in my approach, it reflected in many things. So the sense of purpose came at the point of salvation. I wasn't aware of what that purpose was, and maybe I will get an opportunity to speak to that a bit more because it's an unfolding and evolving journey. But that would be my response to that question.
Thank you very much. I think I like that. It's very important that you even remember the date in 1988 and how you experienced some consciousness, a change when you accepted Christ as Lord and Savior. Okay, so I think if I now move a step further, many people equate the word purpose with a particular title, a role or achievement, but yet scripture suggests that purpose is ultimately, connected to serving God's agenda. So how have you come to understand purpose? And what advice would you give to those still trying to discover theirs? Because look, a lot of people out there, some people will tell you, my purpose is to get married, or my purpose is to have children, or, so how have you come to understand purpose, and what advice would you give to those still trying to discover theirs?
That's a very deep question, but I'll try to answer it in the best possible way and be as practical as I can be. Purpose is what we live for. Purpose is the reason for our existence. Purpose is what provides the fuel and the drive for what we do every day. But I've come to understand and work with God to the point where I've also realized that purpose is progressive. And the disclosure of that purpose moves in seasons and phases of life. Even if you are privileged to have a clear understanding of what your ultimate purpose is, the reality is that purpose is lived in the now and not in the future. There is always a purpose for every moment in time we are in, and it's always to connect with what is the purpose. So if I, for example, say as a student, what's my purpose? On campus, I can be involved in many things, but the real purpose is what I've come to study. And even if I do well in every other thing, whilst I remain within the perimeter of the school, and I don't focus on my education, I fail the purpose. So purpose is progressive. And God has his own way that as we continue to deal with the issue of what is the purpose in the now, that when we have hazed that purpose in the now, it then launches us to the next phase. And it's scriptural. In Acts chapter 13, we get the introduction to the leaders in the church in Corinth. While they were praying, they were fasting, God said, separate from me Paul and Barnabas for the work. But prior to that time, they had been involved in the work. Prior to that time, their job was to teach and disciple in the church in Corinth, and they did that diligently. That was their purpose at that time. And when God then realized that they fulfilled this, it's time to move to the next one, he stepped them up to that. So purpose is always in the now. It's never futuristic. It has to be in the light of the moment where we are. And that has driven my approach, is always at every point in time to say, this is where I am at. What's the purpose? What's the target? What's the achievement now? Our job is to deliver in the moment. When we have hasted, then it's God's own way of saying, I'm moving you on. So I've always tried to dive and fully maximize myself at every point in time. And for me, achievement of purpose also comes with the strive for excellence. So as you continue to deepen your capacity, your competencies, as you continue to get on top of the game, it's not left for you many times to understand how it ties to the ultimate purpose, but it's left for you to make sure you are doing all that is necessary at that phase. And we must also then make sure that as we progress, our progression in purpose is driven by things that compounds our immediate. And I know it's one of the issues we grapple with in career. What should be the key driver of the next job? What should be the key driver of the next move? It's not always about money. And I go straight to that point because too many people think the reason for the next move is because I found a job that pays me 30% more than my current job. And so let me go. No, that can't be. That's not purpose. Purpose is about making the choices that strategically compound you, that compound where you are at to a next level. And it's important. Again, I want to stress this, and I'm speaking from my own lens, that money cannot be what we chase. Money is the outcome of fulfilling purpose. Money is the outcome. Money can never be the target. And I think as children of God, we need to settle it in our mind that we cannot be driven by the fear of poverty or the fear of lack as to the reason why we walk or as to the reason why we do what we do. Because there are too many of God's promises that anchor the fact that those should be non-issues. Yeah. There are promises where the scripture says, I've been young, now I'm old, I've never seen the righteous forsaken or his children begging for bread. There are scriptures in Matthew 6:33, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these other things. All these other things is speaking to our needs. Yeah. So the reason why we walk, the reason why we build capacity is not because we are operating from the position of fear so that we can have something to eat. It has to be that there is a bigger purpose. That bigger purpose, as we continue faithfully to discharge the mandate of the now where we find up. And it's very important. It's always easy for people when they've seen somebody that has gotten to what we call the zenith of their journey to say, oh, that guy, the purpose why God created him is to do this. However, what many people don't see is the fact that that final position or that zenith position in most time is the combination of many different progressive cascading things that the person has done over time. And maybe I will use an example to drive this point home. The story that took place, and it's a real life story in 2009, Captain Sulliberger, who was the pilot that flew the US Airways flight, I think it's 1549, that shortly after he took off, there were bird strikes that struck the two engines, and he couldn't fly anymore. And when that moment occurred, he just issued that command, my command, which means I take charge. The cockpit, the tower was telling him, turn around. But once he issued that command, he's saying, I take responsibility. 155 people were on board. He assessed it. It was in a massively built-up area. Here was the Hudson River, and he made a pitch for the Hudson River. He landed safely. 155 people were saved. But, as you would expect in the airline industry, they did after-action review. They called him to an inquisition just to find out if something had happened, the tendency that it will happen again was there. Yeah. And then they challenged him. Why did you not turn back? You had enough time to have turned back and go and make a safe landing. And Captain Sullivan said, no, you are asking me an utopian question, believing that I was in a situation where at the instant in time when the boat struck, I was going to react. Yeah. But that's not the case. So if you want a human response, then let's make the whole investigation human. So what they then did was in the simulation, which they had simulated that if he had turned back immediately after the bird strike occurred, the plane would have landed safely back at the airport. So they introduced, I think it was a 15-second delay to just accommodate the human thing. And then they found out that with that delay, it was practically impossible for him to have made that turn back. So they looked at Captain Sullivan and they said, wow, what you have done is phenomenal. How, you're a Superman, how did you get to this point? And the first thing he said is, well, it's a teamwork. However, let me put it this way, that for 36 years prior to now, I'd been making small deposits that were big enough for me to make a large withdrawal on the day that this incident happened. People looked at him and felt he had fulfilled something miraculous, something that sounded like purpose. But in his own analysis, it's the combination of the many serial choices made over time that then compounded to the point that one day he made that large withdrawal. For 36 years, he had flown a total of 20,000 hours. Wow. Let me dimension what that 20,000 hours means. It means that if he was flying Lagos to Abuja, he had flown for a minimum period of four times twice for a period of over 40 years to make that. But it's about the choices we're making. those choices compound and they help us to arrive at that point where people can then say, who is living purpose? In my own journey, I've had different seasons of God telling me this is the purpose for now. In the current phase that I'm in right now, I've arrived at a point where specifically, he has also told me, as far back as about 3-4 years ago, confirmed this is the purpose for this period. And all that I'm just doing is to run with it. He has, in his graciousness, now started helping me to understand what the next purpose is. But that's not the conversation today. But the point I want to make is that purpose in God's own agenda and in my own experience is progressively revealed. Our own part is to maximize and fulfill the purpose in the now, trusting that when we are done with that phase and season, it then opens the door that leads us to the next vista. And for me, that would be a very practical way to look at it from the dimension of young career professionals. You don't need to be too bothered about the ultimate endpoint when you are 60 years and where you think you'll be. You just need to handle it now.
What are you doing now?
Now, very early in my career, I was privileged to go on a program that was tagged Life Planning Course. And the instructor came, and their journey is to prepare us when we are starting career for life after career. So you can imagine, I'm speaking about 30 years ago.
Wow.
And the gentleman there said he wanted us to write a letter to a friend that we have not seen for 20 years. And we should let our imagination run wild. But in that letter, we are giving the person a summary of what our life had been in the 20 years that we had not been in touch. So we wrote. I wrote my achievements, the kind of wife I was going. No, I just gotten married. How many children, how many money I would have, you know, what sort of impact I would have made. I wrote very explicitly. About 5 years ago, I had the opportunity while going through my archives. I saw the file where what I wrote was. And I opened the file.
And everything.
And I read. Guess what? Where I was far ahead of where I thought I would be within that time frame. So the issue is, it's never about what you dream for in the future. It's about how faithfully are you executing the agenda of the now. How faithfully are you killing it? How faithfully are you becoming the expert in the course where you are? And if you have the drive and the inclination of rising to the top, is how are you investing in yourself, not just to be deep in your area of specialization, but to be broad enough to be able to integrate different decisions across the domain as you climb higher. I think for me, that will be a practical approach. And as you go on, it's also about testing with God. Yeah. So where I'm at, how far is it time to move on or should I stay? Those are areas of revalidating our stay in the moment. But as long as we remain in the moment, we have only one task. Stay on top of the game.
Thanks. I think I'm actually loaded with a lot. Very interesting insights. I think I like the reference to Matthew 6:33. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and every other thing shall be added. I like the point on excellence. In fact, the examples you've given so far are so spot on. But let me take you a bit on excellence once again. Jesus said, let your light shine before men. Right. So in practical terms, how can excellence at work become a form of, Christian witness and kingdom influence?
Okay. I think the way it can be is, first of all, to recognize that your workplace is not a distraction. It's actually the platform where you reflect the kingdom light that is inside of you. The work is not somewhere where you conform and be everything else, only to pick up your cloak of being a Christian on Sunday when you get to church. The reality is that a number of our pastors who live by the day behind the pulpit don't have the opportunity to be the witness in the workplaces and the business areas. So for those of us who are blessed and privileged that we're in the workplace, that is your platform. That is where your light and your Christianity is evident. And if the conduct and the way you go about that work is one where you can't very confidently showcase yourself as being a Christian, then there's something wrong that you're doing. And your conviction needs to be strong enough that if it means it costs you opportunity, if it means it costs you progression and speed by human standards, you are ready to live by that. For you, the workplace is just a platform where you showcase who you are as a believer. So it's part of your field. If you can settle that in your mind, it frees you up. Yeah. If you can also settle in your mind upfront that you are not glory hunting, you are here as you are in other places just to continue to live out your life as a believer, it frees you up from many pressures. And there are pressures that people put themselves under, either because of the desire and pursuit for promotion, for progression, for advancement, and all of that. If your conviction as a believer is not strong enough to prioritize and elevate your relationship and work with God over and beyond what you get in the natural plane, then you will struggle to be that witness. Yeah. Our job is not to come and all we're doing is I never one day thought I was going to become the CEO that I am today. I didn't fight for it. I didn't strive for it. It just pleases God that said, let me let that small boy get there. But the reality is that we must be ready that even if what it means terminally in my career is that I don't go beyond being a team leader, but if God will clap for me in the way that I've conducted myself, then I'm happy. So everything has to be from the lens of who you are first as a Christian, more than anything else. The reality is that the world we're in, we then test you on that. We test you and make you feel you are the hot person. We test you and make you feel you are the strange person. We test you on several fronts. Your degree of conviction and consecration will then help you navigate this. So I think it's first and foremost you being a believer, you being a Christian, and that then moderates how you engage, whether it is in the workplace, whether it's in the business place, because you're operating from a set of core values that are kingdom focused. Yeah. And it frees you up from so many other things.
Interesting. Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay. Yes. So we are meant to shine based on our beliefs as children of God. We're meant to exhibit, Christ in all we do, first of all. But then let me take it further to the fact that, as our influence grows, so does our responsibilities. So from your own experience, what leadership principles have helped you, use influence responsibly, and ensure that success remains a platform for service rather than self?
A few. And the most current actually has to do with my current role. It's very interesting that not too long after I got into the role, in one of my quiet moments and quiet time, the Lord spoke to me and he said, that role, you are a Joseph. And it made me to reflect and go and look at what Joseph entailed. Joseph was raised up at a point in time in history to become the forebearer of providing economic deliverance, economic salvation for his people. So it was very clear to me that that is what I need to do. And I've done my best at every point in time to make sure that that is the guiding principle. This is for me personally. But also as part of the values I've picked up over time, I've also come to understand that leadership is about helping people to be better versions of themselves. So if your leadership journey is not focused on enabling people that come in contact with you to say, thank God for the time I worked with this guy, because that's the time that my game stepped up, that we're failing. Actually, leadership is not about you doing the job. Leadership is about you working to choreograph things together such that at the end of the day, the whole becomes bigger than the sum of the parts.
Sure.
That's leadership. It's about watching out for people's areas of development and helping them to make the transition. It's about watching out and seeing where people's gaps are and helping them to step up. And the irony is that as people step up, your own performance actually steps up. So leadership must be one in influence where at the end of the day, people are better off because of the choices and decisions that you have made, even if you don't come to work together anymore. And whilst doing that, staying connected with the objectives of the enterprise, which is an enterprise that we are working on to thrive, to grow, to expand, to scale, and to run in a very responsible way. So for me, that's what leadership is about. But that leadership in influence, in my mind, requires certain attributes if you're going to be successful about it. First is the power of vision. There's a reason why you are the leader. And you may not have the monopoly of that visioning, but you must have the accountability for the visioning. It imposes on you the responsibility to see forests where everybody is seeing trees. It imposes on you the challenge to always constantly step back and say, where's the bigger picture? It imposes on you to quickly cycle through the routine and to say, what am I missing? What do we need to do to break the mold and move to the next level? That is a key component, and that's where you influence people. It's not just about visioning as well. It's also about your ability to communicate. As a leader, you must continuously practice how you sell the vision, how you encourage and motivate the people to the point where everybody is committed and connected to the mission at hand. And that communication happens in multiple ways. Verbally, how you sell it, and you need to find ways to break it down as simply as you can, so the broad generality of everybody can stay connected to it in your messaging. But your messaging, as great as it is probably not as important as the way you model that leadership personally.
Yes, sir.
So if you say it, but you don't exhibit it, you don't exude it to the point where you are the infecting virus to move everybody along, you will not be able to go far. Yeah. So the influence, it starts with your capacity to envision. And that capacity to envision at times is from the big picture, you break it down, you engage with different people. You are not threatened. You don't feel threatened that somebody may bring a superior advice. You are very open enough to take everybody's advice. Your job as the leader is to integrate everything, to provide the clarity of direction, and then to begin to message. Yeah. Part of that influence is also recognizing people who are extremely talented.
Sure.
And just make sure that you are not blocking their pathway. You are creating ways for them, for that talent,
for their growth,
to rise through. Yeah. And recognizing that some of them will get to points where they must rise beyond you.
Sure.
But in the meantime, your job is to help to nurture that phase while they are working with you to get to the point where they can then take off. So that's the influence. It's at the end of the day, you get back again, you withdraw a bit into that space, and you take a view. you are each time envisioning to stay 3, 4, 5 steps ahead of the game, seeing the bigger picture, how it connects, and then helping to work it down to sizes that are manageable within the organization, but also recognizing the timing, because even those envisioning in the way you communicate them, you try not to communicate too early. There are times it's clear enough to you, but you need to hold it until such a time when everybody can flow with it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to chew from, being a leader who helps to develop others to become better versions of themselves, modeling yourself also as a leader so that people can see and better, see you as an example. And I think you also mentioned communication is very key, and then integrating all of this, relating with people. So there's so much to chew there. But one last question before we go to the audience and our viewers. So tonight, I'm speaking to Mr. Gbite Falade, the Managing Director, CEO of Aradel Holdings. We're just on the 5th question before we then go to Q&A. So my 5th question or last question for you before we allow our viewers to ask questions is, when all is said and done, beyond all the achievements, beyond the accolades, the milestones, what do you believe God ultimately expects from us in the work he has entrusted in our hands?
Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 18, I believe it is, comes to mind. It says, understand this, that I'm the God that gives you power to make wealth, that I may establish my covenants that I've sworn with the nations. There's a reason and a purpose why resources, graces, and all of that are entrusted into our hands. When all is said and done, our driving ambition is that when we appear before our Maker, he will say, you have done very well in using this for the various purposes. And 3 key principal areas of the purposes. One is to take care of yourself and your loved ones. The second one is to take care of others. The third one is for kingdom impact. My prayer personally is that when it is time to go, I want to die empty. I want to have fully expended every grace that I have here on earth. And that for me is the ultimate.
Wow, brilliant. Die empty. That's a very, very powerful one. You must have impacted lives, people, in this journey of life. And thank you so much, Mr. Gbite Falade.
Thank you.
There's a whole lot that, even me, I'm still, trying to capture in my mind. So we have questions from YouTube, Slido, and Zoom. And I think the first question is someone that is asking that without salary and promotions, what motivates a person to work?
I'm sure that question was instigated by a comment I'd made earlier on. Probably at the start of your life as a young person, salary bonuses can be motivations. But they're only motivations to get you by.
Yeah.
You need to run effectively to a point where that is not your motivation. And I say it without any sense of contradiction, that the ability to cater for our needs cannot be the motivation.
Yeah.
I believe the purpose of God is we get to a point where we work not because we are afraid that if we don't work, we won't have money to attend to our needs. We work because we have discovered our specific purpose in the work that we are doing. And that everybody must individually come to terms with. If the reason why I keep working is only riveted around salary and bonuses, I will end up being a mercenary. We're not meant to be mercenaries. We're meant to be mission-minded. There just has to be a mission bigger than money. We must recognize that money will come, but it's the least of our concern. And even if we're unable to find that mission and purpose in the immediate job, keep doing it. Maybe it is for the next job where it will cascade and compound. So we must go to work, and we must do our work and do it diligently as a sense of duty to ourselves. Our job must get to the point where we take it personal. And we're not doing it because if I don't do it, somebody will write my name in one register. No, that can't be the reason why I'm working. There has to be something stronger.
Yeah.
And let me say this. It's not every time that it's clear to us what the purpose and the mission is.
Yeah.
Because life is a marathon. It's not every stage that you truly understand. There are moments that you are just coasting. There are moments that feel like wilderness. But after, if you don't give up, you will then even understand what was happening in that period, which was for your own benefit. Maybe it was developing your stamina, your lung capacity, and so on and so forth. Just stay connected, and just keep doing it until it is time to move to the next post.
Thank you. I think what you said is very spot on, because today we see the younger generation, the Gen Zs, who feel, oh, why am I doing this? Doesn't make sense. They just want to jump to the next thing and all of that. I think, we need to understand why we're doing what we're doing at that point in time, which is very profound. Another question from YouTube is saying that what can one do to accelerate career progression?
Be hungry. Stay hungry. Can I say this? There is no growth in comfort. And there is no comfort in growth. The moment you start getting so relaxed and feel like there is nothing more in what you're doing, you are getting into a comfort zone. There is a level of creative tension that is needed to continue to propel you towards growth. And growth is not because somebody has moved you to a position.
Yeah.
Even in the current position you are in, you can be growing. So it's just challenging yourself to say, I'm feeling too comfortable here. And that may mean you are asking for, or you are looking for an additional challenge, or you are doing some studies that just widens your capacity. The reality is that the workplace has got what it takes to recognize capacity. And when people get to the top, most times it's not because somebody likes their face. It's because the system has become comfortable enough that the enterprise is safe in this person's hand.
Yeah.
We've seen enough demonstration of competence, of personality, and so on and so forth. So develop yourself. Just keep developing yourself. Even if you are not being moved in that job, keep developing yourself. You get to a point where the boundaries of that current location can't hold you anymore. And then you get bumped up to the next one. So you keep investing in yourself. And that investment in yourself is not that knowledge base. It's also in your soft skills. Because that journey at the top also requires a fairly extensive assemblage of your soft skills. Communication, intelligent quotient, how you engage with people, how you treat people, how you come across, your appearance, your ability to hold things down. But those are very, very key. Actually, the higher you go, the more important those become than your ability to run analysis and run spreadsheets and so on and so forth. So you need to keep challenging yourself. What am I doing to equip myself, to deepen my competence, to broaden my base? Those are the things that are responded to that translate into your progression. So if you feel you are stuck, please find other areas where you can grow more, and progression then becomes a whole lot easier and possible.
Fantastic, fantastic. No growth in comfort, no comfort in growth. You also said keep developing yourself, invest in yourself. In fact, invest in your soft skills. As you progress, those skills will become much more relevant than technicals and all of that. So brilliant. A question from Slido is saying, if you were to speak with a young person who is starting a business today or who has ideas but is yet to start a business, what is one piece of advice that you would give that will carry such person for the rest of his business?
Keep trying. Keep knocking. And don't be discouraged. Just keep trying. Keep knocking. Keep trying. Keep knocking. Don't get discouraged. Even when those knocking don't translate into an open door, they reveal to you some things that you probably should not be doing.
Yeah.
And be open to start where you are at. Not everybody will end up being a career person.
Yeah.
Not everybody is also wired to become a business person. But how do you know? Is by trying. And be honest enough not to assume that an opportunity is beneath you. Because many times, diamonds are buried in the rough and they don't look dainty.
Great.
So keep trying. Keep trying. As you keep trying, you keep reflecting. It was by my year 5 of working that I came to a decision that I needed to pivot off from being technical. I read a technical degree. I could deal with numbers. Numbers were my areas of strength. I could do configuration, network configuration, all of that. I was doing fantastically well. But I kept also reflecting, and I felt I wasn't playing to my own area of strength. And at that point in time, I felt there was something missing. Even though I'd never been trained commercially, I needed to train in that area. When I did my MBA, I self-sponsored it. In fact, I think maybe the last payment was a loan that I took. But for me, that was my quest too. And I kept trying, I kept knocking, I kept trying. Many times we start off by almost doing everything. But as we go on, things start getting a bit more clearer as to the areas we should be gravitating to. So I would say, please don't be discouraged. Just keep knocking. Try your hand. Even if you feel that your role or your job is to start a business, the pathway may be to, first of all, work in a regular, structured 9-to-5 environment. As you keep reflecting on those thoughts, down the line, you can always retrace yourself back. But the last thing you want to do is to be idle. You don't want to be idle. I've seen excellent folks, young graduates, graduated with very strong degrees that became very snobbish to certain job offers because they felt it was beneath them. And then when they eventually got an opportunity to interview and they stood before the panel, the final panel, after 3-4 years of snobbish disposition to different jobs that came, they emerged, this particular guy emerged as the best guy. And when he left the room, the interviewers were having a conversation. And they came to a conclusion that we can't employ this guy for 2 key reasons. Number one, when we employ him, the person is going to work under were the colleagues that he graduated with, and they felt he would not be able to cope working under them. The second strand of conversation is that there must be something wrong with this guy. If he's this good, how come he has not been doing anything for the past 4 years? So don't make that mistake. Be ready to embrace whatever comes. And I've said this to many young folks. The job, if you need an assistant for job, the one where you probably need the most assistant for job is your first job. But you must be ready to work so hard at that first job that it becomes the calling card for the next jobs. If after first job, second job, you still need an uncle and auntie to help you open a door, you need to check yourself. And it's not so much about what the first job is. I've seen people who started as teacher, but are at the peak of corporate organizations today. They started somewhere. Even in that place where you are starting that you think is nothing, there are competencies and capacities that you are building up that will become useful as you go on. So I would just say, please keep knocking. Don't give up. Keep trying. Just keep going at it. And don't be discouraged. And don't ever lose confidence in yourself.
Thank you so much. That is excellent. Don't assume an opportunity is beneath you. That's like hot for me, you know. So, and then you said the first job is key, you know. because it should naturally open the door for the other jobs that will come after. Now, we have another question. We have about 7 minutes to go, but there's a question from Slido that says, as a young professional, how do you truly find a balance with work, family, relationships, spirituality, and all?
Well, it's very possible and very easy to find the balance. And I don't think it's so much an issue of balance. It's an issue of priority. It's an issue of how do I address all of these conflicts put together? Because each one of them is pulling at you. Work is pulling. Family is pulling. Your work for God is pulling. Your work with God is pulling. It's about how do I balance it? And that's the kernel. The journey of leadership and influence is driven by the grace to balance. And that grace to balance, you will never find it if you don't discover what your purpose is. So if you first of all understand that the ultimate purpose for each one of us is to be God's child, it helps you to settle certain conflicts off the bat. If you then understand that whilst being God's child, I'm meant to be excellent in what I do, it also helps you. Until you discover purpose, you will never be able to balance and prioritize which one should I go for, which one should I not go for. In Luke chapter 15, verse 17, the prodigal son, in verse 17, the Bible said, and he came to his senses. He was at the point of coming to his senses that he discovered the purpose. And that purpose became the fuel for the next verse when he then said, I will arise. I will go to my father. So, first and foremost, what are your own priorities? If you are struggling because you have not defined the priorities. And when you have defined the priorities, it helps you to resolve the conflict when there are so many things to do at the same time. As a child of God, your work with God, your fellowship with God ranks very high because that's where you generate the fuel to keep going. Your service for God is important. Your family, which is your first, we call it the first Baptist church, your first Baptist church, is very important. It cannot be an afterthought. And within there, you then find the pockets where you address other commitments as you go on.
Great. So one last question before, 1 second, I think second to the last question. Can purpose be achieved through ambition? Could the terms be the same? You should please throw some light on this. This is a question from Zoom.
Yeah. Purpose can be achieved through ambition. I think the key issue is whose ambition? Whose ambition are you talking about? Is it the one you have generated for yourself? By God's grace, I'm involved in discipleship, and one of the discipleship materials that I've used is Experiencing God by Henry Blackaby. And Henry Blackaby spoke about the 7 key realities or truths of working with God, of experiencing God. And the very first one that he said is that God is always at work around us. Our job is to find where he's at work and to join him there. Now, if you say, no, what I want to do is I want to go and create my own work. Yeah, that's your ambition. But you need to be clear that that is what he's asking you to do. So your ambition is great, and we must have the fuel of ambition. But purpose is what provides the fuel of ambition.
Yeah.
The sense of achieving that purpose is what fulfills and drives and fuels our pursuit.
Yeah.
So you can be set off tangentially on the wrong pathway on an ambition if you have not established purpose as your datum of what fuels you. Once you understand your purpose both now and going forward, please build your ambition around the fulfillment of that purpose and run with speed, run with focus, run relentlessly, run like a man that is possessed. That ambition can become the basis of achieving our purpose.
Great. One final question from YouTube, and we need to take it within the next 2 minutes. As a Christian who's also financially successful, How do you balance God as your source with practical wealth building strategies?
Is he asking me?
Okay.
God must always remain the source. And the moment where your confidence shifts away from God as your source to the things he has provided, you are very vulnerable. And how do you test the reality of whether God is your source or not? Is how you are able to respond to his promptings with the resources he has placed in your hand. If you are so welded to those things and you are welded out of a sense of fear, then you are going to have a big challenge. I think the first job is, God, help me never to get to the point where my confidence is derived from the provisions.
From things.
And you must test your heart each time. And God has his own way of testing us. He tested Abraham with Isaac. And he keeps testing us.
Yes.
The moment where something becomes what we hold on to, even contrary and against what God would have you do, then you need to be careful. So daily, just keep telling yourself, this is not my confidence. This is not where I'm going to. God remains my source. Brilliant. And if everything is taken away, he's able to bring back again.
Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we've been speaking to Mr. Gbite Falade. It has been a very engaging, insightful, and very, very intriguing session. To that extent, we've come to the end. I think one key takeaway for me is what he said, where he said, die empty, meaning that you must have ensured that you've impacted as much as you can based on what God has given to you, and then, make God your source. Know that you are a child of God. That is the first purpose. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. And I like the other thing he said at the beginning, which is, first of all, it was when he gave his life to Christ in 1988 that something, his consciousness came to know that God has indeed a purpose for him. So, Mr. Falade, thank you so much for your time. It's very difficult to get a busy executive into the room like this, but I'm sure that a lot of people, our viewers tonight, have benefited, they've been impacted at your journey, the story that you shared, and I pray that the Almighty God will bless you more and more in Jesus' name. So viewers, thank you as we draw the curtain for this edition of the Kingdom series. God bless you. Look out for the next edition, and we would surely look forward to having you as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
I see the energy in the house tonight. Say, sling stones, kill giants. That's the climate. It's the science of your rulership. And we are only to attest. In you there's liberty. In you there's liberty. Oh, there's freedom. You give clarity in our conundrum. Swing the heavens up pendulum over my head. Oh, you're without an end, or should we? Many, many reasons to call you. say, get it up, 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 up. You got me knocking, got me hitting on your door. Like it's me and alarmist. Why would I exit when I'm triple down, body, spirit, soul, type one. What I'm below to grow, what's that? Money for me, Shire. Money is still on still. Matter of fact, we are certainty. There's no counterfeit to you or honesty. Say, oh, you're without honesty. No shooting. Many, many reasons to. Many, many reasons to call you. See, you're without honesty. You're without an end, or should we count it? Many, many reasons to